Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Thanksgiving Eve. It is Wednesday, November 27th, 2024. I am Dave Biddle. I'll be joined by Matt Baxendell in just a moment. 3 days and counting until the game. Absolutely cannot wait. What's our confidence level for the Buckeyes? Oh, they're very high, very high. But, you know, what are we most confident about when we look at this matchup? Is there anything that concerns us? Bax and I are going to delve into that. Also, guys, why can't college football get the early signing period right? It's just ridiculous. I was saying for years they needed an early signing period, meaning like the last week of July. Do it just like college basketball does. Right before the season starts, have one, and then have one after the season. And they keep screwing it up. They finally did an early signing period starting in 2017, but they did it in December, late December. And then they moved it this year, but they moved it to next Wednesday. Yeah, next Wednesday, December 4th. It makes no sense. They should do it the last week of July. Bax and I will get into that and much more. David Sanders Jr., what's the latest with him? All that's coming your way. On the busiest travel day of the year, we're going to see Bax in a car, so that's perfect. And during the show, I'll let you guys know about Mando. I mean, they've got a customer in me for sure. I just re-upped. Today's show is sponsored by Mando Whole Body Deodorant. I love their products. We have a great deal for you guys, so you can check it out yourself. Mando was developed by a doctor, and it gives you 72-hour odor control. If you've been using the same deodorant for several years like I was, until I discovered Mando, it might be time for you to try something new and better. Mando Starter Pack is perfect for new customers or to secure last-minute stocking stuffers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant. That's what this is. 2 free products of your choice and free shipping. Luckily, I have a discount code to help you get hooked on my favorite smelling whole body deodorant on the market. New customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack. Use code Bucknuts at shopmando.com, shopmando.com. Please support our show and tell them that we sent you. Don't let BO keep you on the bench. Smell better with Mando. Go with the bourbon leather. That's my recommendation. I like that. They've got a lot of good scents. Go with the bourbon leather. Give that a try. All right. Bax, good to see you on Thanksgiving Eve in a car, as you should be, on the busiest travel day in our country. How you doing, my friend?
I am driving up for Thanksgiving in the fine town of Wadsworth in Northeast Ohio. So pretty good today. No traffic too bad yet.
Good. I'll be doing all my traveling tomorrow. Gonna rough it tomorrow. All right, man. I mean, listen, I'm too confident. What's your confidence level 1 through 10 in this Ohio State team up north matchup?
It's a 9 because anytime you talk about that game and that opponent, you have to take the helmets factor into it. In that, if the caliber team they are, and you put it on like Illinois or like even a Penn State, I'd be like, yeah, we're going to kill them. But because of who it is, and especially because of the last 3 years, I'm always a little nervous. But I don't have a good reason other than rivalry for us to not absolutely pound these guys. They're not good this year. Ohio State's got probably the best team in the country. They don't have their cheating to help them anymore. It's in the horseshoe. There's the only matchup I think that they have an advantage on either right now is going to be with their D tackles inside. And I'm not sure how much of an advantage that's going to be against an OSU line that's been pretty good the last couple of weeks. So confidence is about as high as you can realistically be. But when you're playing this opponent, even when we were winning every game, and how we're going to get back to that, I think, I'm still nervous.
I love Rick on Facebook saying bet. There's going to be a lot of that. I mean, even they were being so obnoxious with the bet. Even like their school president, Santa Ono, was getting in on it. Oh, man, Buckeye fans are going to be going bet. Hopefully on Saturday. Yeah, man, I mean, I'm right with you. I wouldn't say I'm a 10. I think that would be, but I'm pretty damn close to a 10. I'm right with you. 9.5. I'm really confident, but knowing that this is the game and, going through the 90s as I did, I'll never take it for granted until I know for sure they've won this game, but I'm very, very confident. You hit on it. I mean, Ohio State's offensive line, I thought, played well against Indiana to the naked eye, and then I saw the PFF grades. I was like, oh, geez. Not really good. In fact, Seyerveld and Hinsman graded out the highest. So if you're worried about those guys, maybe worry about the other guys. It's one game. I'm not worried about Donnie Jackson. Donnie Jackson didn't grade out well. Tegra did not grade out well. Josh Fryer didn't grade out that well. And you're right. They've got Mason Graham, who's a first-round lock. They've got Kenneth Grant, who probably is going to be a first-rounder, maybe a second-rounder. They've got Josiah Stewart, who's a beast off the edge. That's one thing Michigan's got going for them. They've got some, legit NFL dudes on that defensive line against a Ohio State offensive line that's down 40% of its starters and really was not playing that well last week.
The other thing, too, is that it's going to be a really cold day. Like, the temperature, like the high at kickoff is like a 26 or something like that, 25. So it's going to be the coldest Michigan game since 2008. And I was at that game. That was the game I accidentally snuck onto the field for the kickoff. Stood next to Lawrence Wilson on the sidelines. One of my best Michigan stories. But
really
it was
good
so cool.
Team too, with Nick Sheridan at quarterback. That game was a joke.
They were really bad that year. And that's the other thing we have to factor in here is that, like, this Michigan team is not good. In fact, like, if they were smart, they would, after the expected loss to OSU, they'd self-ban from a bowl game trying to proactively get ahead of these NCAA sanctions that are going to hit them. But when you're involved in the biggest cheating scandal since the Black Sox, I don't think that's going to be enough. But at the end of the day, the cold is going to be a factor. And if it affects Ohio State's passing game, then things get a little more, cheeks clenched for me. But at the end of the day, this is an opponent where you're always nervous. And there are very few games where you get that cathartic, just absolute pounding of them. Even when we were winning every year, a lot of those games were close. I mean, the 63 points Urban put up the one time, or like the 42-7 from 2008 that I just mentioned, those are the exception, not the rule. And I think that's just something to keep in mind for us this weekend is that Ohio State is a 3-touchdown favorite. It's the biggest favorite they've been since the year Michigan quit on the game and claimed COVID just because they knew they were going to get murdered. And I don't know if it's going to be that big of a spread, the factor of there being a rivalry. Now, if Ohio State comes out of the door playing like, a monster, then it's a totally different ball game. You come out of the gates and put touchdowns, and then we'll talk about a big number. But at this point, just win. Just beat them. Get this off of Ryan Day's back and move on. Because I said it last week, and I'm going to say it right now. You should not be allowed to win a national championship at Ohio State if you don't beat Michigan, period.
I know 2 years ago, I'll always remind myself of that. I was so ticked off after the game 2 years ago because people were asking right away, literally like the night of Ohio State losing at home to Michigan, which I thought they were going to take it to. Now we know other factors were at play. I get that. I'm not one to not mention the elephant in the room.
Cheaters. Sorry.
I love how Jack Sawyer was asked about that yesterday and was just like, you could tell what he wanted to say. There was a long, pregnant pause when he was asked about, Jack, you guys talked about you've lost them the last 3 years, but there were other factors at play. And he could tell he kind of liked that. And he was like, how much do you guys talk about that? He was asked. He's like, he had this look on his face like he wanted to just absolutely destroy someone. And he goes, then he just kind of calmed himself. We don't really talk about that much anymore. And he said, thanks, guys, and got up. And, and that was going to be the last question anyway. It was just really cool how he handled it. So my point is, Bax, in 2022, they lose to Michigan. And I was so ticked off. And people were asking me, even the night of, maybe even during the postgame show. Certainly.
Yeah, it was postgame show. We were talking about it.
Yeah, certainly the next day when I hosted a radio show here in Columbus, we're the first ones on in Columbus the morning after Ohio State football games, and people were asking me about the playoffs, and I'm like, first of all, they're not going to make it. I was wrong about that. Second of all, they don't deserve it. I don't even want them in the 4-team because it's obviously 4-team playoff. They lost to Michigan at home and got smoked. I'm like, I don't want them in the playoff. And what happened? They got in. They completely outplayed Georgia. They came within this close of winning the national championship. So now I think Ohio State's going to smoke Michigan on Saturday. But I will always harken back to just 2 years ago how I was completely wrong in my initial thought that, well, screw this. They shouldn't be in the playoffs. They're not going to be in the playoffs. If for some reason disaster happens on Saturday and then Ohio State goes on to win the national championship, I'll be okay with that. But how about both happen? How about Ohio State beats Michigan and then goes on and wins the national championship?
I personally think Ryan Day has dealt with some really misfortunate things during his tenure. We could easily be talking about him right now as the next coming of Nick Saban if a few things don't happen to him. Think about it. The first year he's here, that may be the best team in the history of Ohio State football in 2019. It's certainly one of the most talented teams of all time. And they got hosed by the SEC home office on video review against Clemson when the SEC's champion was in the national championship game. So their shenanigans won. Next year, he goes back, pounds Clemson in the semifinal. Remember, they were trying to read our signals, and he did the hurry up stuff so that they couldn't change the play. And I wonder if that's where Michigan got the idea next year for the cheating. But pounded Clemson, and then we go to the national championship game, and 7 starters are out or something because of coronavirus. And so we all shrugged and said, all right, it was a great shot. Proud of them, blah, blah, blah. Really weird year. And then the next 3 years, the only thing that we can point at that we can say was BS is the Michigan game, where 2022 is exactly how a game should play out if the opposing team knows exactly what you're doing every play. They should hit some big plays for touchdowns. That was all they scored on the whole game was big plays. So they're a bunch of dirty, rotten cheaters. And even then, you mentioned the Georgia game. If they don't take back the most obvious targeting call in the history of targeting, when Marvin Harrison got hit in the head, Ohio State beats Georgia and TCU for a national championship. So the Ryan Day path is, it can easily be very, 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 very different right now. And the narrative about him not being able to beat Michigan, well, let's be real here. The one time he played them on level ground, he smoked them. And the second time that they were supposed to play on level ground, they quit. So now we're back to level ground. I'm very interested to see if the balance is officially restored. Because by my math, Michigan still hasn't beaten Ohio State fairly or at full strength since 2003. Because they have 3 years of dirty, rotten scumbag cheating. And that's what they are forever. Their title will be tainted forever as cheaters and scumbags. And then they beat Luke Fickell in the one interim year. They've not beaten a full-strength Ohio State team without the benefit of cheating in 2 decades. So let's see. It may the balance in the universe may be restored on Saturday.
Yeah, I feel like it's the ultimate reckoning. Everything's lining up. I just absolutely cannot wait. Jay Buck and I will talk more about it on Friday. We're going to be talking all about it. All right, moving right along. Before we get to how inane it is, how they set up the early signing period. I can't believe the early signing period is next Wednesday.
It's so stupid.
So stupid. I guess let's just get into that now. Then we'll get, since I already brought it up. All right, so it's the easiest thing in the world for years, as I was saying to begin the show. For years, I was saying they need an early signing period. I was talking about this in the aughts, early teens. Finally, in 2017, they do an early signing period. I saw it. I'm like, finally, I'm like, wait, they're doing it in late December? No. Do it in the last week of July, right before camp opens. Last week of July. It so makes too much sense, right? Do it just like college basketball does. One right before the season, and then one after. So keep the traditional signing period when it is, first Wednesday of February, and then have one in late July. Makes too much sense. So now they've done it twice backs, and they keep getting it wrong and making it worse. Okay, I don't know who decided to move it up and decide, let's make it instead of late December, early December, when teams like Ohio State, things go well on Saturday, going to be getting ready for a conference championship game. I don't know, man. I mean, I'm sure they're going to eventually get this right. It's just another thing that college football just can't get out of its own way.
Yeah, and it's super stupid because you either have teams in bowl prep like before, or now you're going to have teams in championship game prep. And these coaches already have too much on their plates. And the reality is, what's the point in signing in December or February? To me, it makes no sense. The purpose of an early period is for the kids that have been committed that aren't changing their mind no matter what, and you get them signed in the summer. And then after that, you run it out to February. It also makes it more fun, frankly, because February signing day used to be total shenanigans. January was the month of visits and flips, and there's no benefit to December to me. It should be in like late July, early August, and then it should be the first Wednesday in February. It makes sense. I mean, otherwise, all you've got now is kids who spend the whole season trying to negotiate up their NIL, whether it's D linemen flipping from Ohio State, whether it's Michigan paying Bryce Underwood $12 million to go there. Like, at the end of the day, these business decisions can happen in the off season for a February date just as easily. Now, if you want to enroll early, because that's their argument, is that you want to sign in December and then enroll early. If you want to enroll early, in the summer, sign in the summer. It's that simple.
Looking forward to getting Bax's thoughts on David Sanders Jr. Speaking of recruiting, Buckeyes going to get the spatula out, as my friend Mark Neal would always say about Urban Meyer, nicknamed him the spatula because he was always flipping top recruits. So are they going to land David Sanders Jr., who might be coming back for the game after his surprise visit, at least a surprise to Tennessee last week. A lot of smoke there. I can't wait to get Bax's thoughts on that. Returning as a sponsor of the show is Cornbread Hemp. You guys are buying Cornbread Hemp because they're telling us so. And we can get you guys a great deal if you haven't tried it yet. Cornbread invented the first USDA organic THC edible, and it's legal for anyone 21 and above in the United States. The gummies have 10 milligrams of THC per gummy for just the right dose, perfect for taking off the edge without making you feel anxious or paranoid like other cannabis edibles. If you're looking for a healthier way to enjoy a carefree moment, you have to give Cornbread Hemp a try. Again, they've created the first ever USDA organic THC gummy that's 100% legal. As a special offer for Bucknuts Morning 5 listeners, you can get 30% off your first order. Just visit cornbreadhemp.com/Bucknuts. Use promo code Bucknuts at checkout. Again, that's cornbreadhemp.com/Bucknuts. Use code Bucknuts for 30% off your first order. Cheers to a healthier happy hour. Bax, are we going to be saying cheers, David Sanders is a Buckeye? Boom, David Sanders is a Buckeye? I think so.
I will be having a happy hour if we say yes to David Sanders as a Buckeye here. The fact that Tennessee didn't know that he was coming is a big deal to me, because you hear about kids that visit other schools where the team they're committed to is like, look, just go make sure we're fine, we're all on the same page. I love that you communicated. Tennessee's like, what the what? So to me, that seems like a big deal. If Sanders comes back for the game this weekend, to me, that tells you where he's leaning. And I got to say, the first thing that went through my head when I saw him on the sideline was Justin Fry. I immediately thought of Dumb and Dumber, where he's looking at him and it's like, after all of this, you do this and totally redeem yourself. Because, my God, do we need David Sanders. He is the most important recruit in this class, hands down. Because who the hell is going to start a tackle next year for Ohio State? Sanders is going to walk on campus and start.
Yeah, and he's a little bit in the Nick Petit-Frere mold that he might need a year, but maybe not. Maybe not.
Who's going to start a tackle next year, Dave? Who's going to start a tackle next year?
Portal and David Sanders Jr. Yeah, seriously. I mean, maybe Ian Moore. I mean, I don't know. But then you're going redshirt freshman. Yeah, man. There's a good chance he could step right in and start as a true freshman from day one. And I'm sure that's what they're telling him. And you're right. Justin Fry is going to go from, not literal zero, but zero to hero in a ludicrous speed amount of time. All right, a couple more things. We'll get you out of here. Man, what this win would mean for Ryan Day and this senior class. It was really cool talking to these guys yesterday. Even Will Howard, he gets it and then some, just about how much this will mean for Ryan Day, how much it'll mean for, the guys he considers his brothers now, even though Will's been here 11 months. He wants to win this for Coach Day. He says he loves Coach Day. He wants to win this for the rest of the seniors, but even the rest of the seniors like Emeka and Cody Simon and Jack Sawyer, hearing them passionately talk about how much they want to win this for Ryan Day. Obviously, Bax, it's going to be huge, and it's crazy. We're talking about an entire team of Buckeyes. Nobody has any gold pants, but they will after Saturday.
Yeah, and that's something that hasn't happened recently. And let's be real candid here. These kids literally had these games stolen from them. That's how they have to see it, right? And if people rob you in life, you don't often get to look at the perpetrators in the face and get any sense of vengeance for it. This is the sense of vengeance that these guys are going to get. This is what they have played their entire careers at Ohio State for. They all came back this year because they could not abide by the fact they did not win this football game. And unlike any other group of Buckeyes in history that have not won this football game, they are singular in being able to say, we were robbed. It was stolen from us. Particularly the 2022 game stands out as an egregious theft. But Will Howard, I think, very much gets it. There's a chucklehead moron on the radio in Northeast Ohio who said he wasn't a real Buckeye. Respectfully, that guy doesn't know anything about Ohio State football and should go back to New York. But the end of the day, Will Howard gets it. Ryan Day gets it. Ryan Day did an interview where he said, outside of losing my father, it's been the most painful thing to ever happen to me. He's finally learned how much this means. And I have talked endlessly about this, Dave, the last 6 years with you. Ryan Day is a first-time head coach at Ohio State, and we have endured some of those first-time head coach mistakes, learning lessons, errors, right? Things that would have happened at Bowling Green for Urban Meyer, things that happened at Utah for Urban Meyer. Even Urban Meyer, after all of his practice, still made mistakes. But Ryan Day, he sort of learned on the job. And this is the final thing he had to learn, is I think he knew it was important to beat Michigan. I don't think he realized how life and death it is to beat Michigan. And I'll go this far. I think Ryan Day is perfect for the job at Ohio State. I've already mentioned on this broadcast that Ryan Day could easily be talked about like he's Nick Saban, had a few things gone his way. But I'll also say this. If he does not win this football game, the calls for his head will be the loudest that you will ever hear, because you have to win this football game. This game means more to me, more to Ryan Day, more to that football team, and more to most people than anything else on the table this year. I would rather, if the Lord in heaven sat down next to me in my Jeep and said, Bax, would you rather win the Natty this year or beat Michigan? I would beat Michigan and wouldn't even think twice about it. It's not even a thought process. And can I request a 50-point win where Ryan Day calls a timeout and glares at them across the field? I want that. That is the most important thing in Ohio State football, period. And these guys get it. And that is why I think you're going to see vengeance on Saturday.
I love the attitude that I felt over there yesterday, first from Coach Day and then the players. We didn't get a lot of players. We got 5 players. But I didn't sense any tightness, what you would think. They got to be a little bit on edge, right? Like, I sensed a quiet confidence, a locked-in team, a hungry team. Basically exactly what I wanted to see. And that, that doesn't mean necessarily it's going to pan out exactly the way Ohio State wants. But, man, I got a really good vibe being over there, the way they're handling their business this week. And it's going to be awesome. Let me ask you about Caleb Downs. We'll get you out of here on this. Been waiting for, Caleb Downs to become the Caleb Downs that we expected. And then defensively, it's like they've unleashed him more, and we're seeing the impact there. By the way, I think Michigan's offense is in big trouble against this Ohio State defense. I think this is the best defense in the country. Michigan's offense is anemic, and it's one-dimensional. I like Mullings as a running back, but, they know that all they can do is run the ball. So I think Michigan's offense is in big trouble on Saturday. But Caleb Downs now is punt returner, returns the first punt for a touchdown for the Buckeyes in 10 years. I absolutely love what we're seeing. Now he's up for national awards and stuff like that. Thorpe Award, Ben Narek. I don't think he's going to win those. He doesn't have the stats for them, but he's only a sophomore, man. We're seeing the real Caleb Downs stand up.
Yeah, and I think those award semifinalists or finalists are as much name recognition as anything else. He doesn't have crazy stats, but I think it took half the year for the defense to adjust to the way that I think helps Caleb Downs shine. They played him more as a straight-up safety in the original first part of the year, and now he's the all-over-the-field Troy Polamalu style, a safety that I think he really is at heart. He is certainly an X factor. I won't be surprised if Loveland plays for Michigan, and that's a question mark right now. But if Loveland plays, I won't be surprised if Downs follows him around a lot. But you're dead on about their offense. they don't have a great O-line. Like the last 2 years, they've had a bunch of 22-year-old grown men on that line who also knew what the defense was doing. They had a pounding running game that was their philosophy. And, at the end of the day, they don't have anybody that can really be a receiving threat other than Loveland. You talk about what happened with their tailback situation. Mullings is clearly the better runner. I think Edwards pretty much collected a paycheck to stay and hasn't had a great year. But at the end of the day, Davis Warren is the worst quarterback since Nick Sheridan that they've ran out in this game. Right. He's just not good.
Worse than John O'Corn. Yeah, I think he is worse than John O'Corn, which is saying a lot.
Yeah, I think so too. And I'd also throw out there that if they put Alex Orji in, they don't even trust him to throw the ball. He's essentially just a glorified running back. But
right,
they've tried all this all year. Frankly, their best quarterback was Jack Tuttle, and he's done for the year with concussions. He had to retire, I think, which is a shame. But at the end of the day, they don't have the offense. I don't see a way they get to 20 points. I just don't see it. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, they scored 50 points against Northwestern. I'm like, okay, and Northwestern was sort of done. And let's face it. And I don't see how they get to 20 points. I don't see how Ohio State stays under 20 points. So, this defense, I think, is in position to pretty much assert their dominance. You talk about that confidence that they have. Sometimes before a fight, you look at the two fighters, and the one's going crazy, psyching himself up. And the other one's just sitting there like, all right, I'm ready. That guy usually wins because he knows he's going to win. And I think that's where Ohio State is right now.
Amen. Great stuff from Bax. Safe travels, my friend. Happy Thanksgiving to you and yours. Appreciate your insight.
Happy Thanksgiving as well, Dave.
Thanks to Bax. Thanks to all of you. Happy Thanksgiving, Bucknutters. I'll be with J-Book on the BM5 on Friday, so we'll talk then. We'll, of course, have the post-game show after the game. But thanks to Bax. Thanks to all of you. Happy Thanksgiving, Bucknutters.
Beat Michigan.